Radio Valley 99.9 FM. Tune in every time or anytime. Not every day, but once in a week. Voices of note. Get up and speak. They tell stories, these voices you know. Listen up now. Listen up to the show for voices that move and voices that shape. This is the show. This is My Mixtape. My name is Soup here on Radio Valley 99.9 FM on the show My Mixtape. As always, I have to make mention of my board operator, faithfully, loyally, Tshering Tashi. Thank you very much for being here. And, of course, who is my guest? Let me just say this. If you have seen, all right, you guys on radio probably don't see what I'm holding in my hand, but you on YouTube, you get to see this thing that I'm holding in my hand. This book, it's called Bold Bhutan Beckons. If you've ever come across this book, you will know that this is a very rare book in the sense that it talks about something that most people actually had no access to. And my guest today is, in fact, the co-writer of this show. Of this... Oh, did I say show? Of this book. Right. And has managed to, delve into corners and things that we, as published writers ourselves, never imagined possible. So it is my pleasure to welcome Bhutanese writer and journalist Tshering Tashi to My Mixtape. Welcome.
Thank you, Kinga, for having me on this mixtape. Right.
Our pleasure. And of course, we've been chasing you for quite a long time now, some years now, saying, Tshering Tashi, mabesa nevedita. Come on to my show. I have to be in Katilo, Hong Kong. I have to be in Yalo. I have to be Palo. That's over there, But finally, last week he said, okay, 2 weeks from now, I'll do it. So finally, we managed to get you. I imagined with the mountain echoes and all that happening, it would have been impossible for you to come on the show. But anyway, yeah, I know you're preparing for mountain echoes. Is that what's keeping you busy these days?
Kingo, as someone who records history, for the record, I've never been to Hong Kong.
Okay, sorry, but wherever it was, that you kept saying you were.
Okay, so we're busy with Mountain Echoes. It starts, the inaugural dinner takes place in India House on the 22nd. Then the following day, on the 23rd to 25th, we have over 60 writers, and probably say that out of the 60 writers, more than 50% are Bhutanese. And we have a lot of speakers lined up, and in 2 venues, and there will be 9 performances and 3 workshops. And we expect a lot of people. From our experience from 2018, we've had a footfall of 3,000 to 5,000, and we expect the footfall to increase this year, mainly because it's the 10th year.
Yes, the 10th year. For 10 years of Mountain Echoes. Well, he seems to know all the details about Mountain Echoes. Why? That's because he's one of the festival directors, has been for quite a while, of Mountain Echoes. Yeah, but tell us about Mountain Echoes. I mean, what exactly is that? I mean, many of my listeners out there probably don't know what Mountain Echoes is.
So it's to celebrate art, culture, and literature. And every year in August, we have a fixed calendar. We get speakers and writers and artists from all over the world. Normally, on average, we get about 9 international speakers, and the remaining between Bhutanese and Indian speakers. And Mountain Echoes is a very special, a special festival, and held very dearly to many people from all walks of life, and is basically to celebrate culture and also to provide a platform to the youth of Bhutan.
Right. From my personal point of view, I really value Mountain Echoes because it's that one time in the year when we get people who are like Nobel laureates and extremely well-known minds, some of the greatest minds out there in the world of literature and art, coming here to Bhutan, and we get to feed off them. This is what I really value. I know there are some people who say things like, hey, we're getting overshadowed. Of course we're getting overshadowed, because there's so few of us in this world anyway, and then we're getting some of the brightest minds out there over here. There's no big deal, but the point is, glean what you can. Whatever you can get from them, you get it. My sense as a writer, in a very technical sense, my esteem of myself as a writer, I think, was boosted because of Mountain Echoes. I came to understand that, hey, okay, so this guy writes fabulously well, but he's just an ordinary Joe just like me. He has an ordinary life just like me, and that gives me the confidence as well that, hey, one day I'm going to take out a fabulous book. I've been saying that for 10 years, by the way. Anyway, yeah. But you, of course, have published quite a lot. So many, in fact. Bol Bhutan Beckons might be just one of them. You have Symbols of Bhutan, Myth and Memory, Untold Stories of Bhutan, and Mysteries of the Raven Crown. And I know there were a couple of others as well that you co-authored or authored by yourself. You've been staying busy, I mean. And it obviously appears that a lot of the work that you do is of historical value. Why do you do that? I mean, why history of everything?
So 2003, the December, end of 2003. So 1st January, technically speaking, we returned back to Bhutan from South Bhutan. I was serving as a militia officer during the 2-day war, the 2-day operation. And during my time in Gellipu, where I was stationed, I made notes. So the first thing when I came home, I went to a few scholars and I said, these are the notes, and I think it's important that for the country to record and also to share this information. I waited for 3 years, nothing happened. Then I was forced in 2009, 6 years later, to write about the 2003 operation. So since then, I have not looked back. Now for the last 16 years, I've been doing research, and my main objective is to record stories of people who are taking their stories to the graveyard.
Okay.
And is a matter of great urgency. In the last 16 years, I was able to record stories of both Bhutanese and non-Bhutanese who had contact with Bhutan.
Right.
And you mentioned that I traveled. Yes, I did, mainly to England to record stories of children or the grandchildren of those British political officers who came to Bhutan.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but then again, see, I mean, what a place to start as well. It was the 2003 operations. You know, of course, I don't want to be like, as we say, in Zonka, awagam lom da timna misemidi. Of course, that's not what I want to do. But the point is, look, I was already an active journalist by 2003, but I never imagined that I would have been able to write about that operation, or that whole thing, phase in our history. Never. And the details that you've been able to gather and garner shows that there is quite a bit of trust, state trust in you. Whereas a person like me, if I had said, okay, I want to write about this, people have said, okay, all right, but you probably shouldn't, How is that possible? I mean, it obviously appears that you're extremely resourceful.
So you can imagine, to write a story, for example, in 2003, I spent almost 6 years. Firstly, 3 months in the field, taking down notes diligently and meticulously.
Right.
And also talking to a lot of people during my station. And also when I came home, I immediately started recording stories of many of soldiers who had served in the frontier towns.
Right.
In the fear that if left to time, it can get embellished or it can get lost.
Distorted also.
Yes.
Yeah.
So after 6 years, after collecting data for 6 years, it made it very easy for me to write. And I could also see, it was such a remarkable story that had to be recorded.
Right.
And I'm glad I was able to record this.
We are glad you were able to record
history,
it.
this piece of history.
We are glad. We are extremely glad because, I mean, you know how it is, especially with things on that scale. Sometimes things, as you mentioned, may get distorted, probably glorified, or made ugly. In fact, you never know. And the truth sometimes just gets hidden somewhere. It turns to it gets covered by the dust of time. But it's because of the fabulous work like people like you are doing that. We know and we keep this history alive. So in that respect, I have to say from my listeners, not just my listeners, from Bhutanese in general, thank you so much, Tshering Tashi. That respect I have for you, that you've done some fabulous work and you keep doing it. In any case, obviously my listeners also want to know, who is Tshering Tashi? Where was he born? Where did he study? What's the background on Tshering Tashi? We'd like to know that as well. So please indulge us. Where were you born? What kind of family? All of that. Although I do know some details, yes. But let's get into that.
So I have 3 children. My oldest son is 22, and the middle son is 9 years old, and I have a young daughter, 5-year-old daughter.
Right.
And every now and then my children ask me where I was born.
Mm.
And when I tell them I was born between Thimphu and Paro, they don't believe me.
I didn't know
And-
that.
Yes.
You were born between Thimphu and
Yes.
Paro. Okay.
On the way to the hospital to Thimphu,
Okay.
Under a tree, I was born under a tree.
Wow. Okay, that's a fascinating story. Wow.
And we were one of the fortunate batches in the early 70s, 80s to be sent to Darjeeling.
Yes.
So
yes.
I went firstly to a very small school called Bethany.
Bethany, right.
After finishing my pre-primary school in Lunana School in Thimphu, and then after 1984 to 86, I was in North Point, St. Joseph School in Darjeeling.
Yes,
Yes.
while I was on the hill. I was
Yes.
at the school on the hill, right.
Rival schools.
Rival schools, yes, we never got along. Yeah,
Yes.
Spadgy.
Yes.
They were called Spadgies and we
We
were
were
called
called
Polites.
Chatawalas.
Yeah, Chatawalas as well.
Yes.
That was the more derogatory term. Yeah, true. Yeah. So you were at St. Joseph's, right? And then,
And my education in Darjeeling, because we were educated by the Jesuits, laid the foundation of my curiosity. One thing the Jesuits did really well is that they inculcated curiosity in children and encouraged you to have an inquiring mind. So it made all the difference. And if you look at students who've come out from Jesuit schools, they're always asking questions.
true. I think, yeah.
And then once with the agitation in the hill station in Darjeeling, many of us were evacuated, and then we continued the education in Bhutan. And like the rest of my friends, I studied in Yangchepu High School. Then went to Sharapsi for 2 years. I
Yes.
did my pre-university.
Where we were together,
Yes.
I was, I think, few years senior to you.
And
2 years.
it made all the big difference, because because we studied in Sharapsi, we know half the civil servants.
Yeah,
It
true.
makes things easy, and also it taught us a lot of things.
Yeah, that I would agree totally. Yes, absolutely, on both points, right? Yeah.
Then after finishing my pre-university, I was lucky to get admitted
Shriram.
to Shriram College
Yeah.
of Commerce under Delhi University.
SRCC.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
The only college in Delhi with a swimming pool.
Right.
There's
Okay.
a dearth of drinking water in Delhi, but we had a swimming pool.
Right. Yes. And then, what do you study at SRCC?
SRSS only offers 2 courses. It's
Right.
either BCom honors or economic honors. I found BCom easier,
Okay.
so I chose
okay.
the easiest subject, and I'm
All right.
glad.
Okay. Cool.
Yes.
And then, what was it? Then
Then
financial
back-
management, I think.
Yes,
you did,
then back to Bhutan. Then
Mm.
we were the first batch to be listed in the postgraduate certificate in financial management
You're right.
in the Royal Institute of Management.
RM. Yes. And then you got into business, I think,
Yes,
after a while.
yes.
Yeah.
No, I worked in audit 4 years later.
Oh yeah.
4 years after setting up the audit information management system, where I headed the information technology unit. I realized working in the government was not my cup of tea. It was a decision that I made, and to this day I have no regrets about. And what I studied in both Sharapsi and in Konglung has nothing to do with what I'm doing now.
You're right. True. I think that holds true for many of us. I mean, for most of us, right? And the world is increasingly coming to understand that also. The nature of work and jobs, etc., is all changing. In any case, it's such an entirely different world. In the span of 20 years, how much has changed? It's crazy, right? Yeah. So, but then when did all of the writing and all that? Was it, as you mentioned a while ago, from the notes, etc.? No, but
Yes.
you were writing for publications.
No, I
weren't
wasn't
you?
writing.
You weren't?
2003, when I came back after serving Malaysia,
Mm.
that was the time I felt seriously that someone had to not only record chronologically and comprehensively, but also make it known to the public, about historic events.
Right.
And I waited 6 years, and when that didn't happen, after trying to persuade many scholars, and when it didn't happen, I took the job on myself.
Right.
And since then, I've not looked back.
Good. Excellent decision. Of course, we want to delve further into all of the interesting things that you've uncovered over the years. I am dying for that, and I know that in the next segment, it's going to liven up with the show's going to liven up with all of those details. We're going to be discussing some very interesting things in just a while. But first, of course, we need to head straight into your playlist. After all, this is my mixtape. In other words, it's your mixtape, right? And the first song that we have is a song that comes again with a lot of history. and a lot of myth as well, you might see. Zombala Seruru by Zumpedoji Getse. I mean, Zumpedoji Getse, his voice is on that song?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Zumpedoji Getse, by the way, the Zumpe to His Majesty the Fourth King, the Great Fourth, is none other than Tshering Tashi's own father. Right.
My father had nothing to do with the song.
Mhm.
All he did was, because we couldn't find the song, I requested him to record it, and that is why he comes in the picture.
Okay.
The song, when we were growing up, my father taught us this song. We used to stay up late night learning the song and also learning how to perform. And it's a very interesting song. The Paropelop Sirpenjo had a queen, Aji Chimi from Kangku.
This is a long time ago, by the way. Okay.
And Kangku is not so far from where we live, and we have family members living in that area. And when Kujo...
Kangku is just like directly opposite the Zong, no? I mean, like on the other side of the valley.
Opposite the Paro airport.
Yeah, more or less.
Yes,
Yeah.
immediately opposite the Paro airport. And when Kujo Sirpenjo found out about his wife's or Aji's lover, you could imagine what happened. So what was even more interesting...
Ninja warriors.
Yes. What was even more interesting was the minute the lover sensed that Kujo Sirpenjo knew something about the affair, he immediately fled to Pari in Tibet. Kujo Sirpenjo was a man with a lot of perseverance, so he sent 3 Bhutanese men in hot pursuit. They caught up with him in Pari.
With the lover.
Yes, with the lover, and the rest is history.
Okay.
When Ajichimi finds out about her slain lover, she cannot do anything but express it in the form of a song.
Okay.
And I will read a bit of the translation of the song.
All right, let's check it out.
It's called Zombalaseru. In English, it's coral tree, coral tree. On top of the coral tree, big as well as small birds circle. I, a small bird, also circle. When it has enough room for the body of a grouse, it has no room for the single mind of me, a small bird.
I didn't quite get that. So, coral tree. What is a coral tree, by the way? A tree made of corals?
It's a fiction,
Right,
fiction.
right.
It's a metaphor.
Okay.
So
Yeah. I can see that it's a metaphor,
Yes.
but and she's a bird, and
yes, there's a big bird and a small bird.
Right.
I hope now you get the picture.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to still make sense. So she can fly there.
Yes.
But what was it about that room for her? Would you just say towards the end?
I think if you play the song, then you can leave it to the.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, that's how it should be. Yeah.
To the listeners' imagination.
Yes, that's how it should be. So do listen. We've been enriched by that fabulous mythical background, almost, or maybe historical background also on the song Zombala Seruru, and that is what we're going to be playing. So yes, interpretation is entirely up to you. Here we go. Radio Valley 99.9 FM. Radio Valley. Friday, back here on Radio Valley 99.9 FM on the show that's called My Mixtape. For those of you who tuned in late, you might be wondering who my guest is. My guest is none other than Bhutanese writer of note, Tshering Tashi. Right. And let me also say that, look, I'm wearing a Mojo Park t-shirt. Right. Not one of my usual Karmakora t-shirts, but a Mojo Park t-shirt, an establishment that I support wholeheartedly. Music is live 6 days a week at Mojo Park. Just want to make that clear. And in relation to all of that, let me just say that we have another grand event coming up soon in the autumn. As always, it will be the Tour of the Dragon. That's one of the toughest mountain bike races in the world. And it's a one-day thing that starts early in the morning in Bumtang and ends in Thimphu. If you want to participate, not as a competitor or a contestant or an athlete, but if you want to participate in the stalls that are usually put over there at the conclusion or at the starting point, whatever it is, please get in touch with User Events, okay? User Events, that's the organization that you need to get in touch with. Okay, now, the work that you've done, and we've said it very clearly, with Bold Bhutan Beckons, of course, you've delved into so many things over here. But, like I said, the highlight for me, at least, being the 2003 operations, which I imagine nobody could have written about, because usually, when you have things that are associated with the military and all of that, that things begin, to get hushed up, and then people are very wary about it, and they say, okay, let's not talk about it, that sort of thing. But you were able to delve into it, and that's fabulous. Here's the thing. You uncover so much that the rest of us don't even have any idea about. And I think that is one of the wonderful things about you. Tell us about Yuzina.
So in 1966,
all right, take note, please. Listen to this. All right, 1966, yes.
An Indian survey team goes up to North Bhutan in the high country. They don't make it, and then in the map, the cartographers make a note of 5 houses in it. Since then, they've talked to people and they find various names for it, and the 2 common names that pop up are Isuna and Yuzerna.
Okay.
And they're 2 different names.
Okay.
So
we have an Isuna in Paro as
yes,
well. Yeah.
Exactly. So I go through the maps. I managed to get a copy of the map and go through it, and sure enough, confirm the markings of the 5 houses. Very curious, I start following the lead and find out that there's a man in Punakha Hospital who is from Yuzena.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Namge. He was mauled by a bear. He became a misfit in the society, in the community. So he comes down, and while he's also, because he's in need of medical attention, and decides not to go up. Talking to him, we find that there are only 16 people living in Yuzena.
Okay.
And Yuzena, in the English translation, would be land of the race. And out of the 16...
Light rays, right, yeah.
Land of the race.
Okay.
So out of the 16 people, 10 are male and 6 are female.
Okay.
Now what's very un-Bhutanese is, usually when you travel in the country, we always leave behind the firewood for the next traveler to use.
Right.
Also, we always keep the ladders if you have to climb a cliff.
Right.
In this case, they do neither. So the first thing they do is they pull up the crow ladder.
Okay.
It's called, in Dzongkha, it's called olayaku. It's basically a log of wood. Some, depending on the height of the cliff, it can range from anything from 5 feet to 15 feet, where risers and tread are etched on this log. And they pull it up, and they've lived in isolation, we don't know for how long. The first contact with the rest of the Bhutanese society was in 2007. This is when the
imagine that 2007.
Yes.
Wow. Probably one of the last known, if you can call it a civilizations to actually have contact with the rest of the world, right? Okay, yeah. 2007. Wow.
So before 2000, what led to the 2000 expedition was we tried to do an expedition, but the expedition was highly discouraged. We were told, also warned, that we could lose our lives.
Yes.
So we postponed it, and meanwhile the election commissioner picked up the article. They read about it, and 11 of them went to Yuzena. And out of the 11, one almost lost his life because the journey was so perilous.
You're right.
The following year, in 2008, a few those that were eligible to vote, they participated in the historic transition into parliamentary democracy, and they were the only Bhutanese who were given a token amount, and they traveled 11 days to reach the nearest polling station.
Wow. Imagine that. I mean, like, you have no contact with the rest of the world. Of course, contact at your own will. You come out sometimes, but you make sure that the rest of the world doesn't come to your place, doesn't know about you, doesn't visit you, knows practically nothing about you, and you shut all access to your own. So essentially, like Bhutan was, for hundreds of years, we closed ourselves to the rest of the world practically. So they were living it within Bhutan, right? So this is a very highland area above Lunana, right?
No, it's between Lunana and Punakha.
Okay.
So if there are 2 ways. One is from Lunana, it takes about 11 days.
Okay.
Then there's a shortcut.
Okay.
It's from Punakha Phochu, the Mail River. It takes only 3 days.
Okay.
But the problem is you cannot get there through this route because it's half the time the river submerges the trail. And Namge describes as the trail as a rat track. He said sometimes we don't even see the trail because it's submerged in the river. And it's too dangerous.
Okay. Wow.
Definitely for not for feeble-hearted,
right,
or even those that are fit cannot make it. It's almost impossible.
Okay.
So you have to do the 11-day trek to reach the village.
Wow.
The village is not very high. It's about 2,300 meters.
Oh, that's not too high.
Yeah, they grow barley, maize, They
Okay.
have cattle,
Right.
they play archery.
Mm.
And what's interesting is because it's so secluded and they've kept the rest of us out of the civilization, we feel that there are many, is a habitat for many endangered or critically endangered species.
Right.
Like, for example, the blue bear in Songkhla is called latom. And while it is not Bhutan is not the natural habitat of the blue bear, because Tibet is, 5,000 meters.
Okay.
The blue bear usually lives in Tibet. But when the Chinese came into Tibet, and because it was a bounty animal, they were shot to extinction. Similarly, in Sikkim, north of Sikkim, in the high country, the same thing happened. The hunters went after it,
Right.
shot it to extinction. Now we think maybe the blue bear, some of them may have migrated and chosen
Okay.
places like Yuzena.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Wow. So that's fascinating stuff. That's fascinating stuff. I mean, not only are the people themselves an endangered species, you actually have endangered species up there as well, right? And to think that the rest of the world gets to know about Yuzena only in 2007, and the very next year they're in the electoral process as well, voting. Fast transition to democracy. Faster than anybody could imagine, I think. Wow.
But
that is mind-blowing.
But imagine living in a pristine area.
Right.
And also not having to pay tax. And that is the only reason why they evaded society for so long.
Okay.
So that they don't have to pay tax.
Okay. They must have been persecuted, I think, for quite a while. Possibly. I mean, otherwise, why would you have such a...
Unlikely. In the old days, people, there was a lot of tax.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they felt the tax burden.
Yeah, exactly.
And to escape the tax
Exactly.
but then they escaped. And since then, they've been living in complete isolation.
Wow. So now they're getting into the mainstream more now?
Unlikely. Very unlikely. I've not heard any updates.
Yeah.
As far as I know, there's still 16 of them.
Right.
And because it's only such a small gene pool, there's a lot of incest.
Inbreeding.
Inbreeding,
Yeah.
which has led to many deformities.
Exactly.
Also, they're prone to getting sick.
Exactly. That's
Yes.
what I was thinking as well.
Yes.
When they have contact with the rest of the world, and you go there, we probably take some viruses and stuff that they have no immunity against, and that way you could be endangering them as well. Yeah. So we have to treat them like an endangered species. I think we have to be very respectful of their way. I mean, after all, it is their home, right? No matter what we say and no matter what we think, and rightfully we should respect their ways as well. I heard about this for a long time. I was just curious about it, very curious about it. Didn't know much beyond the fact that they're very protective about their own place, and wary of strangers, and if they find that there are people who are being a little too inquisitive, they might even kill them. That's what I heard.
No, I don't think they're aggressive because
Right.
in the old days, during the winter, they descend down into Punakha Valley. They work for a few days because they need essentials like salt,
Okay.
oil.
Right.
So they barter,
Okay.
they contribute labor,
Exactly.
and then they're not used to money. So the host family who hire them usually gives in form of kinds,
Okay.
mainly rice and salt.
Right. I mean, that's what I heard, that they would come down, they would trade a little bit, but they wouldn't want anybody coming up to their place. And the thing about them wanting to kill strangers and visitors, etc., all that, maybe I watched too many movies. Horror movies. The hills have eyes and all of that stuff, I think. All right, we're going to move on to another quick music break to your second song, which is Old Town Road from Black Panther. Tell us about this. What's this doing on your playlist?
One evening, I come home. My 9-year-old son has his laptop. He's downloaded the lyrics of Black Panther Old Town Road, and he's saying, "Dad, can you print?" Which I do promptly. Next morning, on the way to school, he's singing the song. Now, what is really interesting, a week later, on the way to school, my 5-year-old daughter, she's also been able to sing the song.
Wow.
It has 138 words in it.
Okay.
Since then, my
That's
wife
not a very long song.
it's not a very long song, but for a 5-year-old to be able to memorize 138 words
overnight,
in less than a week
yeah.
is a feat.
Mm.
And since then, we listen to it in journeys. And even to this day, I barely remember 50 words.
Right. How long ago was it when you heard the song?
Is 1 month ago, exactly
1 month
a month ago.
And in a month, you can barely remember
Yes,
50
50
words. Right. I think it's obviously something to do with age to a large extent. I remember, when I was a teenager, I'd listen to heavy metal music where they were almost rapping. I mean, there was no such thing as rap. I mean, there was rap, but in metal, there was no such thing. But then you'd have, almost rap-like sort of singing. Start your birthdays, firmament face, start the speed, fast man, run all last stand at the peace line, eat, go straight line, stuff like that. So I could make sense of all of that. And it took me about 3 or 4 listenings to be able to get the words and remember them. Yeah. Now, impossible. Even the slow, delicate, melodramatic songs, I can't even remember beyond one line. Obviously, it has to do with age. But I'm curious to know about this song, 138 words, which your kids picked up so quickly. It means that the song is extremely catchy. So, all right, so let's take a listen to this then, Old Town Road.
99.9 FM, Thimphu's personal radio station for all the hit music.
#1 hit music station.
99.9 FM.
Hit music station.
99.9
FM.
Are you ready? Hey, are you ready for this? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat?
99.9
Alrighty, we're back on my mixtape here on Radio Valley 99.9 FM. My guest today is somebody who's been giving us such interesting historical detail that I am intrigued and I want to know more. In fact, that is exactly what I was looking for on the show with Tshering Tashi, and I am not disappointed. Obviously, I want to ask Tshering Tashi, you could have chosen to write about anything. You told me a while ago before the show that you are motivated by your concern, by your will to be useful. You could be useful in 20,000 different ways. But why? Why historical detail and, all of that? That is primarily your area of research. But why that?
Firstly, the urgency. There's so many old people, both Bhutanese and non-Bhutanese, who are taking their stories to the graves.
Right.
We're in a hurry, we don't make time for the old people. And if you don't record it now, the story is gone.
Right. Yeah, you have to take into consideration also the fact that we didn't have a script. And there was no historical research as such for hundreds and hundreds of years in our history. Whatever little was out there was done by religious scholars in Cherokee, all of that, right? So we don't have much historical material to begin with, and most of it is an oral tradition, right? So there's so many old folks whose lives in fact span eras. The world that they inhabited when they were kids and the world that they are inhabiting today are entirely different. So yeah, I understand the urgency.
If you don't record history, then what will our children know about our history?
There you go.
And if you record it now, it's for posterity. And there is no reason why everything that you record, you publish or you write about it. It can remain as a data, and then in time to come, your children can do more research, and also it gives them things to do. There's a sense of adventure, and also makes learning history more interesting.
Right. So you've, in many ways, of course, you've opened doors, found out things for yourself. In many cases, you've opened the door and you're inviting the youngers now. You're telling them, hey, come on, look, I've opened this door. Why don't you, delve further, look inside, and what's going on there? See how that is relevant to you, and bring it out for posterity.
So, for example, my latest research was on the capital city, Thimphu.
Okay.
How it became the capital city.
Okay, fascinating. Why? Tell us about this. Yes.
Okay, so it's interesting because Thimphu is the capital, and people tend to assume that it has been so for a long time.
Which isn't true, right? Yeah.
So recently, I discovered two interesting reports on how Thimphu became the capital.
Okay, cool.
And also through oral stories, found out that many reasons. So in 1952, when the second king, on his deathbed, he told his son that one of my dying wish is for you to move the capital from Pumtang to Thimphu.
Now you have to understand, particularly you younger lot, that at that time the royal family was based in Pumtang and Trongsa, essentially. You're right, moved between Trongsa and Pumtang, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, as a good son, the third king honored the dying wish of his father, and after successfully performing all the funeral rites, immediately with his queen, Her Majesty moved to Paro with the intention of setting up the capital in Thimphu. Now, in the first recorded document, the white paper that reflects His Majesty's vision is in 1962. So in Pinsuling, there's a meeting between 4 officers led by from the Bhutanese team, led by Tashu late Lendup Doji, and 2 consultants are called from IIT from India. They come and they in 2 pages they give 22 reasons, 22 points. They list out 22 points. Few months later, the same team is called and they give few reasons. Like for example, they found Thimphu to be suitable for all year living. Secondly, it had ample water. And also enough space for sewerage facilities. Thirdly, Thimphu Valley was big enough to be able to house at least 12,000 people.
That's the limit that they imagined, right?
And in 1962, you have to remember, the third king started a reconstruction of Tashi Chozong,
right?
And to make it his new headquarter, and also make it the symbol of modern Bhutan. And what is interesting is within the span of 7 years, in 69, he managed to finish building. Rebuilding Tashi Chozong.
Which was a difficult gargantuan task as well, right?
Except for the Utsi. His Majesty and his team brought down everything. There was no machines. And what is interesting about Tashi Chozong is it is the only zong with a blueprint. In 7 years. But when you say 7 years, 3 winters, for 3 months, it was too cold in Thimphu to carry on any work. So 9 months out of the 7 years you deduct. And it is, historic.
There was a meningitis outbreak as well.
So many things happened. And what is interesting is, today we take so long to build anything. In those days, 7 years.
Without machines.
Without machine, with huge constraints on resources, both human and capital, we were able to achieve feats. So also because of Tashi Chozong, and also by then the royal palace, the garden palace, Linkana, had been built. The consultants and the Bhutanese found that if you made Thimphu the capital, is in the close proximity of these 2 great institutions, which are of great significance to the Bhutanese people.
Okay, cool. One of the things that I heard from an old timer was that His Majesty the Third King, of course this is just conjecture and nothing proven, nothing researched about it. What he said was the Third King was torn between the choice of Paro and Thimphu, and he decided, no, Paro's too beautiful, it's also a wider valley, let's just keep it beautiful. Thimphu, it's narrower, so it's going to get congested anyway, so let it be. We can manage it in Thimphu. But if Paro, it can get too widespread as well. So that was one of the concerns. That's what I heard from one of the old timers. But
okay. As a researcher, yes, we value oral history, but also we give a lot of credibility to written sources.
Right, obviously.
And in the written files doesn't mention
anything of that.
Anything about the debate. But it is logical because Paro has more monasteries.
Right.
Thimphu has fewer. And it was wider. And also it was only 10 hours at that time, 10 hours from Thimphu to Hashmara.
Right.
And being a landlocked country, you need access to air. And at that time, Thimphu was the closest to Hashmara. And the roads had just come in. By 62, they started building the roads.
I feel, while we're talking about this, I feel at one point in time, technology allowing, Thimphu and Paro might be like New York, New Jersey, neighboring urban hotspots as well. Imagine one day we have a tunnel through and a train service between Paro and Thimphu. It'd be one city more or less. It's possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, very possible. Yeah. And could happen very soon. But just imagine if Paro had been made the capital and you had the airport there as well. Bhutan would be quite different, I think. Very different. And Paro itself would be unimaginable, I think. Right. You're from Paro? Oh,
yes.
Right, okay. Where exactly?
So it's interesting, both my parents, my father and mother are from Paro. My father's ancestors moved from Kurte.
Okay.
With the first Paro Penlop Daupenjo.
Right.
Because he couldn't trust the Porops. So he brought his relatives. And so my father is from a village called Shari. It's north of Paro town.
Right.
And that settlement, most of them are Kurtips.
Okay.
And where's my mother?
That's the Cherpanji of Bhutan, by the way. Yeah.
And
raining there all the time, every summer, yeah.
And my mother is from Bonde.
Right, okay.
And her great grand uncle was the Paro Zumpen Tandi.
Okay.
And my interest also in history stems from ancestors like Paro Thimphu Tanti, and he was also instrumental in negotiating the Indo-Bhutan Treaty, and he was a scholar of great stature. He's written a lot of things about Bhutan. I've inherited all his documents.
Okay.
And above his
Right.
house there's a monastery, 400-year-old monastery with a lot of treasures.
Okay.
Now I'm the caretaker. I'm the pioneer. I inherited the family monastery
Ah.
with all the
it's in
documents.
the right hands.
with all the documents in it.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I imagine so. And of course, you had, that onus to live up to. I'm coming from, like you said, your interest in history comes from a historically rich family. Your father himself was Zumpe to His Majesty the Fourth King, a man of great stature himself, respected also for his indigenous knowledge tremendously and his wisdom. I am wondering what kind of effect he might have had on you.
So in the old days, when you started to learn computer, there was a button keyboard called F1.
F1, right?
Every
Help.
time we had problem, we pressed it and
Right.
you'd get help. Now
Tips
today-
on,
yes,
what's your problem?
yes,
Yeah.
how to
could you fix it?
print and
Yeah.
how to save a document. Similarly, now in the modern era, we have Google and we search. For me, if I have any problems, Google doesn't answer any of my questions, and it's my father. The F1 button is my father. I either pick up the phone or I go meet him, spend the weekend with him, and he has almost always answers.
Okay. And if it doesn't have the answer, he'll probably point you in some direction, I suppose.
True.
Guide you that way. Yeah. A man of incredible stature. I remember when His Majesty the Fourth King was the king, and we were students and all of that. The first person that we'd meet before we actually met His Majesty the King, when he came to say Sharab or wherever, would be your father, and then he'd have this session with all of us and brief us and orient us on what exactly we should be doing. But then he'd give us little pearls of wisdom as well, and some bits of anecdotes, historical anecdotes. Love that stuff. I really used to love that stuff. Right. But obviously, right. So he, as it is, was extremely respected. Still is. And like you said, he was your help button. He still is your help button. But I'm wondering what kind of qualities that you feel you might have imbibed from him.
Mainly Thatamsi and Lejumde.
Right.
I think it's very important. It's now missing in the social fabric more and more. And if you understand these words, then you can live a more rich life. And it's more meaningful life.
I think so. Thatamsi Lejumde. It might sound something like it's something strange for many of our younger listeners right now, but I don't think we've reached quite that far where they've lost entire, to complete touch with concepts such as that. But Thatamsi Lejumde, yeah, as you said, rightfully, it enriches your life. Really does enrich your life. How would your father explain, say, Thatamsi Lejumde?
For that, Kinga, you'll have to read the book Bol Bhutan Beckons,
Right,
chronicled. Yes, and there's a chapter on my father called The Last Vintage Chamberlain.
Right.
And there's a fascinating story. He never went. He came from a very well-to-do family, and in Paro there's a system called the Chums, and these were the supporters of Shabdung.
Okay.
When Shabdung Namge came to Bhutan in 1616, he didn't have a supporting base, and a group of well-to-do families in the valley supported him, and they were given the title Chum and also given tax exemption. So he came from a family like that. When modern education was introduced, because his mother had extra stikam and also extra rice, she was able to bribe the teacher, and so he never went to school.
Okay.
So he's a self-educated man.
Wow.
And today
I didn't know that.
He spends a lot of time reading the Kanjur. It's one of the most sophisticated
Wow.
texts. And every day he tells us about what he finds in the Kanjur.
Wow. Amazing. So I suppose that thirst for knowledge comes from there, probably. Your thirst for knowledge probably stems from your father's influence. Not to mention, yes, your observance of regimen and discipline as well. After all, all of us, discipline was the first thing that would come to mind with him. Would that be true in your case?
Not as portrayed.
Right.
We have a very friendly relationship.
Obviously.
We disagree on many
Okay.
opinions, but it doesn't mean that we stop talking to each other. By in a very few minutes we reconcile the differences. I have my views, he has his.
Oh, cool.
Sometimes they don't necessarily agree.
Agree, yeah. But you agree to disagree.
Yes.
Oh, cool. That's very cool.
And we open up for further conversations.
Right. That's normally very difficult to see in old timers.
Yes.
Many old timers don't have that quality. They will not agree to disagree. It's their way or the highway. But that's so nice to know about him. Right, cool. We're finding out fascinating details. We're going to take one short music break again and come back into the last segment with on this fabulously entertaining journey and fascinating journey with Bhutanese writer Tshering Tashi. Right, okay, so the next one that we have over here is a song by Abdope. I'm not quite sure which song we have, but you specifically instructed us that you want a song by Abdope. Why is that?
Kingo, I don't think anyone can instruct you. I've requested you. and the reason being, in 2009, while researching on my book, Bold Bhutan Beckons, I spent a lot of time with Abdope.
Right.
He's now 89 years old, considered the father of classical music. And he told me a beautiful story about the lute. In Dzongkho, it's called the Drangyen.
Drangyen.
He said it is like even the Tibetans have a Drangyen.
Right.
Both made of either sandalwood or cypress, depending on your pocket. And he said the only difference between the Tibetan and Bhutanese is that the Bhutanese is only 6.5 strings.
Whereas the Tibetan is 7.
7.
Right.
And the reason being is based on the folklore. So in the old days, there were 7 angels who descended down to earth periodically
Okay.
to bathe in a beautiful pond surrounded by a meadow.
I'd love to be there.
So in that area, there was a little boy.
Okay.
So he was the cowboy of the village. And
Damn, I want to be him!
and he was in that area and he knew the routine of these 7 angels.
Okay.
And one day when he goes, he hides behind a tree, he finds the Drangyen. He picks it up, takes it home, and then every night he strums it. And what he realizes is that one of the youngest angel, the Khandum, the Khandum appears and in his house. And they have the best of times.
Okay.
So the Khandum said, look, the Drangyen is mine. You can keep it as long as you don't show it to anybody. Over time they bond, and across the valley, across the river, there's another small kingdom, and the princess of that kingdom hears the music, and she also gets enchanted, urges the father to build a bridge, and she crosses the bridge, comes to this man's house, and then they treat him, and because of the blessings of the Khandum, this boy from the village, he becomes wealthy. He becomes wealthy.
Right.
He's very comfortable, and these young girls are courting him. One day, one of the girls quickly go into his house, finds the Drangyen hidden behind the door. She strums it. Immediately, the Khandum appears. She does something, and then in the same evening, when the boy gets back home after the archery match, he picks up his Drangyen, and when he's about to strum, he realizes that all the strings have been cut. So he's devastated. Then he starts in the next few days, he starts losing his wealth, and then he gets desperate. He's used to a comfortable life, and now he doesn't have the means to support his lifestyle. Then he goes back to the meadow, hides behind the tree. He finds that the 7 Khandums have come to enjoy the pond. Then he invites the young Khandum and pleads with her and saying, I made a mistake, and if you can kindly pull the strings back. She said, she explains, she's saying because the Drangyen has been defiled, that it can shorten her life. But in any case, because of our past history, I will put back the strings. But she put back the strings immediately, but lowered one and said, there's only now 6.5 strings to remind you of the breach of trust.
Okay. All right. So by extension, we could possibly surmise that the Tibetans can be trusted, but the Bhutanese can't. Of course, I'm not. That is certainly not my conclusion. Just a joke. That's just a joke for those sensitive people out there. Just letting you know, it's a joke. Right. But fascinating story, and this is a story that Abdope told you.
Yes.
Right. Okay. About the Drangyen.
Drangyen.
Yeah, which
Drangyen is one of the three traditional Bhutanese musical instruments.
okay,
And it is distinct from the Tibetan because of the 6.5 strings.
right.
And I think stories like that, if you don't record, with a sense of urgency, if something happened to Abdope, he
Yeah.
takes it to his cremation.
Yeah, because I mean, I've had Jimmy Dukpa here on my show. I've had King Sonamdoji on my show, and I didn't hear this story at all. And now, thanks to you, I know this. Wow, this show, My Mixtape, is proving to be a great platform for so many things, I think, for the arts, for talent, for history, for knowledge of all sorts of things. I'm so glad I started the show. And I know that's one of the reasons why you out there are listening to the show as well. So, fabulous background, mythological background, and historical as well, considering that it's Abdope on this, whatever song we're playing of Abdope. So this is your tribute to Abdope, I suppose. Right, here we go. Yeah, that was Abdope. You know, a lot of you will consider that recording scratchy, and it's like this. If the way I see it is, you know, I love blues music. Of course, the modern blues music is well recorded. It's done in the latest studios. It's clear, crisp, everything. It's great music. But when you hear a Robert Johnson number, for example, a Robert Johnson recording, you know, from way back the 1940s and the 50s, you will hear this sort of, you know, scratchiness. But it's so genuine. It's so true. It's got its own value, and it that sense of history is always there. And I think that remains true of this recording of Abdope as well. Man, this is a classic. I need to get deeper into stuff like that. Yeah, but I'm here with my guest Tshering Tashi. We've been talking about Abdope and history and all of that, and I'm curious to know a little more about, you know, some of the work that you've done and some of the things that you have uncovered for us, because I mean, it's there in history. We ought to know about it, and like you rightly pointed out, many of us, you know, don't know, and then the people who know about the stuff will go to the graves. And so you are taking on that very onerous task of picking up these things and, you know, making it known to the rest of us. One thing that comes to mind, for me at least, is, and it made the rounds in the social media circles as well, locally or nationally at least, is the thing about the larger-than-life Shabdrung statue, which people like myself had never known about. How did that come about? Tell us about that.
So in 2004, I go to Calcutta, and the first place that I go to in the city that I visit is the bookshop.
Okay.
And in Park Street, there's a beautiful bookshop called the Oxford Bookstore.
Right.
So I'm staying at a friend's place opposite Park Street, and my host is an Englishman. His name is Nicholas Rhodes. Unfortunately, he passed away. He was late Nicholas Rhodes' name to fame is he is a numismatic and an achuro by profession.
Okay.
And he was the authority on coins of the Himalayan region.
Okay.
So I received an email from him. He said across the house there's a museum called the Royal Asiatic Society.
Right.
I said, why don't you go there? Then he introduced me to one of his dear friends called Chowdhury.
Okay.
So I go to meet Chowdhury, Mr. Chowdhury.
Who is the curator there?
He's a curator.
Okay.
A curator. And while I'm waiting, so as I climb, Mr. Chowdhury's office is on the third floor.
Okay.
So as I climb up, on the landing of the staircase of the third floor is this beautiful brass statue. I look at it, and you know, you don't need to be a genius to figure out who the person was. It was Shabdrung Namgye.
Right.
Never seen such a more beautiful and a larger than life size statue. So instead of meeting Chowdhury, I'm looking at it. You know, the first instinct is to prostrate, and then I meet Chowdhury and I ask him about the statue. He said, "Oh, it is a Bhutanese statue." I come home. The first thing I do is shoot an email to Nicholas Rhodes and ask him for more information. He and late Nicholas Rhodes, he's a treasure trove. He married a Tibetan woman from Darjeeling,
Okay.
Dickie Rhodes,
Okay.
And she was also highly knowledgeable. She worked for The Economist in London, before we even knew about the magazine.
Right.
And immediately he pulled up a lot of literature on the Shabdung Namgyal statue.
Okay.
It turned out that the one day before the Daw Wars in 1864, the British Army sent an intelligence officer by the name of Captain Hidat Ali. And when we went through the British officers list, we didn't find his name there.
Okay.
That was very interesting.
Okay.
And to this day, we don't know, where the details about Captain Hidat Ali. But
Okay.
we know soon. We assume that he was from the British intelligence.
Okay.
So Captain Hidat Ali arrives probably at Dalimkot, which was in Kalimpong,
Right.
which was part of Bhutan. And on the hill, top of a hill, there's a small fort, and called Dalimkot Zong.
Okay.
And he's seen a lot of Bhutanese prostrating. So he said the statue must be of great value to the Bhutanese. And knowing that the following day, that they're going to bomb the Zong, he has it extracted. He donates it to the Royal Asiatic Society. And already then, in 1865, it was 100 years old.
Which makes it over 350.
354 years old.
Wow, over 350 years old now. So, could it possibly be the oldest known statue of the Shabdung?
Yes.
Wow.
At
And
least-
it's larger than life, you
yes,
said?
at least of that size.
Okay. Yeah, there may be smaller ones,
Yes.
right? Yeah, that are older, but of that size. Okay, yes. Wow. And it should rightly belong to us, right? But yeah, there's a bit of controversy about that and all of that. Well, understandable. But the interesting thing is, I mean, forget about its historical value also. I mean, more importantly, its historical value, of course, and its cultural value. But these things must be, well, valueless. I mean, beyond value, no? Invaluable, I would
It's
say.
priceless. Now, for
Yeah,
example,
exactly.
if you go to a monastery in Bhutan, there's many of these monasteries are from the 15th century. Also, the Zongs are from the 17th century. And if you look at the walls, there's some of the most beautiful frescoes in the Himalayas. And professional, art historians from all over the world who spend almost their entire life studying frescoes. And when they come to Bhutan, they look at the frescoes and they're just struck in awe.
Okay.
One of them, of great reputation, from a very fine institute in England, when he came here, he saw some of our wall frescoes. He said, no, these are Michelangelo's of Asia.
Wow.
And if he had a choice between Michelangelo and our frescoes, he would choose the former,
Wow.
without a doubt. And
That-
they are priceless, sacred.
Right. And that's because of their cultural and historical value as well, I think,
Yes.
right? And in any case, for anybody who's been around the Himalayas, you take a look at, some of the temples and the artwork in the rest of the Himalayas, a lot of them seem to use these modern paints, garish colors, all of that. I find the vegetable dyes and the subdued hues of the paintings here in Bhutan far more pleasant, soothing, natural, and genuine, authentic. That's how it feels to me in any case. And I don't know anything about art, But you are saying that a person who knows about art is actually saying that given the choice between a Michelangelo painting and an ancient mural from one of the temples here in Bhutan, he'd pick the temple in Bhutan, the mural.
So,
Wow.
So can you imagine Michelangelo? He's at the level of Picasso.
Yeah.
And just last
even
month
more,
in
yeah.
Sotheby's, a painting of Picasso sold for $55 million. So can you imagine how valuable our paintings are?
What, that shouldn't put any weird ideas into your heads out there, people out there, okay, by the way. We're just trying to get you to appreciate the culture and appreciate the wealth that exists within our own country, and the due respect that it deserves. Wow.
And Bhutan, over the years, we received a lot of great Tibetan saints. Even, like, for example, Top Thangtang Gyalpo is the famous iron bridge builder.
Right.
He came to Bhutan in 1433. And the reason for him to come to Bhutan was he was in Tibet trying to cross the lake. And the boatman looked at him, and because of his brown complexion and unkempt hair, and I don't think he was the most fashionable person, looked at him and said, "You are not getting on the boat." And that moment he took a vow that he will do something to ensure that everybody, irrespective of their caste, color, or creed can cross any water body. He realized quickly that Tibet didn't have any iron ore. Came down to Bhutan, went to Dumsik Laga, and interestingly, Dumsik Laga is on the way to Parozong.
Yes.
Most of us know about Dumsik Laga, and it was like an island. Even to this day, there are two rivers flowing.
Right.
And in the 15th century, one thing that was in short supply was human resource. But Paro Valley, especially Dumsilaga, had that in plenty.
Okay.
Because they were lepers and they were kept.
Okay.
To contain them, they were kept there.
Okay.
So he was a good HR manager. Taught them how to become blacksmiths. And in a few months, he not only extracted iron ore, he was able to forge iron chain links. Made 7,000 chain links and took 14,000 loads to Tibet, out of which he built 50 chain bridges in Tibet and also 11 bridges in Bhutan. Now what's great about Thangtan Gyalpo is the first bridge in the west was built in Pennsylvania in 1801.
Okay.
Almost 400 years after we built the first bridge.
Wow. So he was an engineer far ahead of his time.
Yes, and he was multi-talented. And what's also interesting is he used arsenic, It's yellow in color.
Okay.
It's a deadly poison.
Yes, it is poisonous.
And you can find them, anywhere in Bhutan. And what's the great thing about using arsenic is, firstly, it reduces the melting point.
Okay, of iron ore.
So can you imagine, instead of firing the furnace at 2,500 degrees to melt the iron, you could do it maybe at 1,000 degrees.
Okay.
Which means less wood, faster you could do it. And the other really great advantage of using arsenic was he was able to coat the film of it on the chain link, which made it rust proof. And it's a technique that only the Romans used when they were forging their fine swords.
Swords, okay.
And that technique had lost into oblivion, and Thangtan Gyalpo was able to revive this technique.
Wow.
So today, you will find a lot of people looking for Thangtan Gyalpo chains.
Right,
It's not only sacred, but also priceless.
Yeah, obviously, and history tells so many great tales and stories about him. And of course, he was a great builder, not only of bridges, but of monasteries as well. History is replete, in fact, of incidents and anecdotes of Thangtan Gyalpo. Is that something you're working on right now?
Helping, yes. The conservation of Dumsil Lagang.
Okay.
The Lagang built in the first structure built in the 15th century, later extended by the 25th J. Khenpo Sherab Tensi in the 18th century, and it belongs to the community. There are 13 people who look after the Laga, but didn't do a very good job.
Right.
And if it was left, it would have collapsed. And Her Majesty, the Royal Grandmother, has been very gracious.
Okay.
Used her personal resources to conserve the Dumsil Laga.
Collapse? I thought it was going to fly away, if not for the
for the chains. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that is the myth. There's a difference between the myth and...
But then here's the thing.
Yeah.
We can get to Tumsilaga quite easily because we don't even realize we are crossing bridges today. We're just driving across. It's a question of 5 or 6 seconds. You're on the other side of the bridge, and there you are. Tumsilaga's there. But as you were saying, at that time it might have been very secluded, right? It was a leper colony, more or less. Wow.
And Dumsil Lagang has one of the finest murals in the country, and is one of its kind in the world.
Yeah.
So Bhutan is not only a treasure trove for the country, but also of the world. We're a repository of art for the world, and the world community slowly realizes that, and they're also reaching out to Bhutan and trying to see what they can do.
And this is the point that, in fact, I wanted to arrive at, Tshering Tashi, and it was something that you pointed out earlier in our conversation with each other as well, that while many of us look out to the West for answers and for direction, we are fascinated by everything that happens outside of our own country. Right now, pretty much the rest of the world has been looking at us.
Exactly.
They're looking at us for answers, and they're admiring what we're doing. And they want us to, lead the way in many ways. And they find many of the answers here. And again, that's where the work of somebody like you becomes so valuable, extremely valuable.
Like conservation for Bhutan, our government is not top priority, and you can understand because we have other pressing needs,
Right.
Providing safe drinking water to villagers, making sure the roads don't have potholes, and conservation is not on the top of the list. So, if we don't do something about it, even if it is in the form of an article or recording in the story of a Q&A, then we, as a citizen, we are failing our duty.
True.
Imagine if you lose, like, Tumsil Hagang. Can you imagine? In few years from now, our children, our grandchildren will not forgive us. No, we owe it to our children, our future generation. Culture doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the future generation, to our children. And our job is, we're custodians, and our job is to look after it.
Exactly. Great point you make over there. And right now, we're just talking Tumsil Hagang. That's just a single example. But just think about this. Think about many Tumsil Hagangs, many Hagangs. Think about losing your sense of who you are itself. Today, if you go, just across our border, go to the neighboring state of Sikkim, for example, the people out there, they hold on to their old ways. They miss it. They miss that old country. They miss their own traditions. They miss their own identity. They're dying. That's why BBS is so popular in Sikkim, because they can relate culturally to so much of what we're doing, and they're envious of us and they admire us, and that is something special, and that is something that we could lose as well, right? And I have to take my hat off to you, Tshering Tashi. In that respect, you again earn my respect, and by all means, you should earn the respect of many of us. We've come well. We've overshot our time well, and I expected this to happen with you. I find right now I still have like 10,000 things to ask you, and so many things to talk about. I'm sure you have 20,000 things to get off your chest as well, but we kind of run out of time. Anyway, so we'll delve then back into your playlist, into the final song, if you will talk briefly about it.
So the
This
final
is
song,
Way Back Into Love, is it?
Yes, the final song in my playlist is Way Back Into Love, and it was a movie the soundtrack from a movie, music and lyrics, and the actors were Hugh Grant and Drew Barrymore.
Right.
So in 2003, May 13th, few of us, we went down to Thimphu, which is the RBA headquarters, to register ourselves as a militia. Successfully managed to. And then subsequently in June, I had to go to Australia.
Okay.
And I went to Australia, reached Sydney Mascot Airport wearing a t-shirt. And my friend, a young Australian bloke, he comes to pick me up. And he's been warned by his mother, saying, the Tshering is from Bhutan, and he comes from a very rugged Himalayan country, and they're very tough. And I see him, he's wearing overcoat, he's got a headgear, he's wearing gloves, and I'm wondering what is happening. Soon I realized that in the southern hemisphere, it's winter.
It's winter, and you had gone dressed for summer.
So the first thing I do is ask Luke Harris to borrow his jacket, which he was very kind to do. Then the second day, he says, look, my mother's told me so much about how tough Bhutanese are. He's saying, can we go for a run? And 2003, life was comfortable. I've been a sportsman, but not so fit. So Australians are very
sporty
and competitive. So we go for a jog, and I couldn't keep up. So in the evening I go. iPod just released, so I pick up buy an iPod, download some music, and one of the first songs was Way Back Into Love. And for 1 month, till RBA called me back, I used to listen to my iPod, and every morning listen to Way Back Into Love. And by 15 July, I came back to Bhutan. Then we started a training in Tshering, and I came third in the physical training because of Way Back Into Love.
Way Back Into Love. It was that important. I mean, how crazy is that? I imagine, like if I want to work out, when I go for a walk or a jog and I'm listening to something, it'll have to be something heavy, or it'll have to be, electronica or something of that sort. Really pumped up stuff. But Way Back Into Love, well, way back into love. But that worked for you.
It worked for me. Karma. I said the first song is the first song. It was the easiest song for me to retrieve and listen.
Right.
And by the way, Kinga, I beat Luke Harris in running.
Okay,
after a month.
later. Wow.
And he couldn't keep up with me.
Yeah, so Bhutanese are tough, Bhutanese are tough, especially these parops. Right. You will notice again, many of you who are unfamiliar with my real name, you will notice again that Tshering Tashi keeps calling me Kinga, because we go back a long way, and he knows me from a time when people called me Kunga instead of Soup. The word soup hadn't even come up as a name for me. Instantly, I found that soup, by the way, is SUPE, is actually means something in English. It's a legit English word, by the way. It has 2 or 3 different alternative meanings, and it's also the name of a place somewhere. Where was it? In Portugal, I think, or Norway. I can't remember. Anyway, so there you go. Right. As I was saying, before we get into the song, Tshering Tashi, I just need to make this very clear. I know you're a very busy man. We finally managed to get you onto the show. Thank you so much for coming here. But here's the thing. Although we're friends and we don't get to meet each other too often, but professionally, really, professionally, I have to really put my hat off to you and take my hat off to you, doff my hat, as the British would say, doff my hat, right, for the incredible work that you're doing. And I really do hope that a lot of the younger people out there who are listening right now will dive into a book like Bol Bhutan Beckons, or any of your other books, and see that I know this for sure, that even if they don't realize it, 20, 30, 40 years from now, their children or themselves will be reading it and saying, oh wow, I'm glad this book came out. That's what they will be saying. So my hat's off to you. It's a wrap then here on
entertainment radio station,
my mixtape.